Hi, and welcome to Agri-Foods for You, the Women and Men podcast, where we discuss and showcase proven solutions to the challenges we face in agriculture and food systems at large. I am your host, Harriet Mawia. Now, in today's episode, we are doing something completely different. I am here alone without, of course, a guest. And so we decided to do something different. And what we are doing today, we will try to discuss some episodes that we unfortunately lost. And we are happy to just showcase what we discussed about, and hopefully we can request our guests to come back and discuss the same topics. So one interesting topic that we had recorded was about how Israel conducts its agriculture. So in this, we had a guest. His name is Jesse Obimbo, aka Bimbis. So Jesse was telling us more about what Israel does in agriculture. So he had a chance to go work in the Israel agriculture sector, and he came back. He's a Gen Z, a very committed Gen Z in issues of agriculture. And so he had a chance to go to Israel, and then he came back, and currently he's trying to apply the knowledge and the various things he learned in Israel back in the country. So I'll be telling you what he told us, and I hope, as I mentioned, that we can have him back to discuss, this particular episode that we lost. So one thing, or the three things I'll be discussing from that episode, one thing that stood out was that the agriculture sector in Israel has adopted digital technology, and they're using, they are doing modern agriculture where they have adopted or they are using technologies that are really modern, that are very high level, kind of technology. And I'll give you an example on how or what technologies they are using. So he would mention that the farms there, they are huge, of course. And the technologies that they are using, they are, they are digitalized such that at a press of a button in your phone, you can just press the button and then your farm is irrigated, for instance. So they have technologies that ensure, there is a lot of minimal, labor, as I would say, in their farms. So the aspect of just pressing a button when you are wherever you are and you want your farm to be, watered or irrigated, you just press a button and then the system runs in your farm. I found that fascinating, and I don't know if we are using such technology in Kenya. If we are, please tell us in the comment section. I would love to see that in action, or to see someone that is using such type of technology. So this is very high level technology that is being used in Israel in farming. And I look forward to the point that we can also adopt such technology, even as we'll be discussing that at the end of this episode, on what we can learn from Israel and how we can adapt it to the Kenyan context and also to the African context at large. Also, on the aspect of technology, he mentioned that, the planting and the farming as a whole, it's every step of, doing the farming aspect, is be it planting, be it harvesting, be it weeding, you name it, they integrate technology and modern technologies that are around them. So I found that as something that is on the high end, that is really fascinating, that the Israel agriculture sector is using. Another thing he told us, the second point, as I go to the second point, is that the Israel agriculture prioritizes large-scale farming. And how they do this is that they do have, they do not have these, individual farms where we just have one person having a particular, 0.5 acre or whatnot, but they combine farms. For instance, a family which has, different members with different small farms, they come together and combine their farms to have a huge, large farm where they can do large-scale farming for the different crops that they do, crop or that they do farm. So that's something also that stood out, the second point, that there's the aspect of combining farms. I'm not sure if that is something we do here. For instance, in the Kenyan agriculture sector, we have individual farmers. And again, we have a big, huge problem of land demarcations, where we see people planting or farming a very small piece of land. And probably the entire family might have a huge land, but people continue to, individual farming is something that is very rampant here in Kenya and probably in other African countries. But for Israel, Jesse mentioned that they do have the aspect of combining these different small farms and having a large farm where they agree, this is what we are going to do, this is what we are going to work on, this is the crop we are going to plant, and these are the projected earnings, and this is how we're going to distribute our incomes and all that. I found that really a fascinating aspect that hopefully, if it's something we can learn from Israel, we can tap into that. The third thing and the last part of what I picked from the episode was that Israel has supportive policies. There are policies that have been put in place by the government to ensure that there is increased agricultural production and to minimize importation of food from other places. Remember, Israel actually is in a place that is arid and semi-arid, I believe, but they prioritize making sure that they produce their own food and having policies that ensure that farmers are supported, that modern technology is adopted. These just supportive things that the government is doing to ensure that farming is done on a very high level of technology in Israel. And so those are my 3 points that I gained from that conversation. I'm sure once we have Jesse back, he will tell us more about the same. And I think this is a very interesting episode to listen to, and hopefully we'll have him back again to tell us more about that. So what can we learn from these key 3 points? So I came up with some notes here where I'm trying to think about how can we make agriculture in Kenya more profitable or modern, and also make it more attractive to the young people, because we have lots of young people who are not employed. We have so many issues about incomes and jobs in our country and also in Africa as a whole. But one way that we can have agriculture provide employment or even provide incomes to our population or to our generation, the younger people, is by, first of all, looking at what we need to do to make agriculture not only profitable but also admirable to the young people. The Gen Zs are very critical and they are very straightforward, and their thinking is amazing. So I'm sure you won't convince them to get into agriculture if they cannot see the benefit of doing it. And one way for this to happen, I think, is first of all to capacity build on new technologies. We have various technologies, and it's not something we are going to innovate or anything, it's already there. So like getting those technologies in our country and showcasing them to young people who want to join agriculture or to farmers who are already doing agriculture, showcasing those technologies, making sure that they are able to access those technologies, showing them how these technologies work, etc. I believe that's one thing that would be a priority to see change in the way we do agriculture in Kenya and in Africa as a whole. Again, one key thing that comes to mind about capacity building on new technologies is the support that is needed from the government. The government has a huge role to play on the trajectory of how agriculture is in Kenya. And one thing I believe the government should prioritize is actually ensuring that technologies that are being used in different areas for people who are doing agriculture in modern ways are, brought to the Kenyan context, and they are made available, and to to facilitate that usage of that technology to the masses. That's the only way we can have, usage of technology that is going to ensure that we have increased production, we have increased incomes and livelihoods changes, especially for young people. As much as, of course, we need the support from the government, I also believe it is a personal initiative where we go forward into looking into technologies that we need to use in agriculture. And we forget all these traditional methods of doing agriculture, because we've been doing all those traditional methods over and over the years, but are they really giving us the results that we need to see in our agricultural production and in making agriculture attractive to young people? I doubt if the Gen Zs or the young people like us would want to do agriculture, with the traditional way of doing it, where we bend a lot, where we spend hours in the farm. I doubt if that is what Gen Zs want. I believe they do want to use technology and apply modern technologies into doing agriculture. We have tractors, we have various, machineries that can be used to make, to produce food and to do agriculture. So as much as we want the support from government, but also personal initiative to learn about these machineries, to look into these technologies that we can use, I believe it's very vital and important into moving our agriculture forward and making it admirable to the young people. Another thing we can learn from Israel and apply in our systems, of course, in Kenya and in Africa, is to also try to have improving the access to finance for the young people. Currently, I believe we have systems in place where accessing finance for young people is very hard. We have, they are asked to come with collateral, or even the interest rates are too high, not even to the young people alone, but even to farmers as a whole. So the access to finance or to money that is needed to do this kind of work is very limited. And therefore, if we want to move our agriculture forward, there's a need to have a system that allows access to finance. This finance, of course, will be used to do the agriculture production. Agriculture is a business. And again, they will be able to return the money after taking the loan. So improving that accessibility to finance is very key. And again, as much as it's also a personal initiative, I also want to emphasize the aspect of the government, making it easier for young people to access finance and to be in a position to acquire loans and to, do agriculture without so many, costs, input costs. I remember seeing someone in TikTok mentioning how it is very difficult nowadays to do agriculture because of the high cost of inputs. We have made inputs cost so high, prices for fertilizers, they are on the high, and so many other inputs that are needed. So there's a need to make this, affordable to the kawaida farmer and also to the young people, so that we can move our agriculture forward. And the third point that I think we can learn and make it happen in agriculture, I think is, for lack of a better word, I think this one actually, it's a general wording of what we need to do, and that is modernize farming. How do we modernize farming? Of course, technology has to be the part of making farming modern. Again, we have continually over-relied on rain-fed agriculture, where we have these seasons. When the rain comes, we plant. If the rain does not come, farmers experience losses. I think, honestly, it's been something that we have been doing over and over, and to some extent, because of climate change and changes in rainfall patterns, it's no longer working for us. Why not make agriculture something that someone can do whether the rain comes or not. And that will happen if we prioritize harvesting rainwater, making sure when we have floods, because sometimes we have a lot of water during rainfall seasons, we can harvest the extra and plan how we can do agriculture with irrigated or irrigation water from other sources of water, sources that we have in the country. So if we're gonna modernize agriculture, then we have to stop being over-reliant on rainfall, because the rainfall itself, it's not reliable. So there's that aspect of, let's look at how we can get other sources of water, irrigate it. And I remember in our first episode, we had a wonderful guy who came up with the technology for irrigation, where he is supplying that as a service to farmers. So farmers come and tell him, oh, I need your service to irrigate my farm. He collects his tools and goes to irrigate their farms. I think that's a really nice way to do farming, because you're not just relying on the rainfall. If the rainfall comes, fine. If it doesn't come, you're still good to go, and you will still have bumper harvest despite the rainfall. So I think that's actually the general and the most important aspect of agriculture. Let's modernize agriculture. Let's put systems that make it easier for farmers and for younger people to do farming, I believe. As we wind up in this episode, I just remembered that the aspect of inputs, and the main or the most important input in agriculture is the seed. So I know we have different seeds for different crops, and also the seed systems for different crops are at different levels. For instance, looking at the maize seed system is very advanced. We have so many hybrids of maize seed in the market. We have, the Kenya Seed Company, which of course has different hybrids available. And we also have farmers, when they go to shop for these seeds, coming across so many seeds. Some of them, they continue to use one seed that they have used for many, many years, because they probably don't trust the newer seeds. So that's just an example in the maize seed system. But the seed aspect is very, very important, because we are in completely different times. If, for instance, a farmer, let's give an example with a farmer that is growing maize. If the farmer is using a maize seed that has been in the market for over 30 years, and this is a hybrid that was bred for that particular time, that is 30 years ago. 30 years ago, we had different climate, scenarios. We had different abiotic and biotic, stresses. And so that seed was bred for that particular time. So if that farmer uses that seed now, how will that seed provide the best output for them? I think it's impossible. So there's a need to use the right seed, or the correct seed that is available to the farmers. For instance, as I mentioned, the maize aspect, we have very many seeds that are very recent in the market, and they have been bred for the current, climatic conditions or the current farm stresses. And so farmers can get such seeds instead of over-relying or continually using very old seeds that have been in the market for years. And this, of course, does not improve our production. That's why we keep on importing maize from other countries, because we can't get the demand or the supply that we need to meet the demand. So we cannot get all that we need in the basket, in the food basket for maize, and so we continue getting from other countries to supply for us. And it's because of some of these aspects, the input being a very vital factor. We really must do things differently in agriculture, so that we can have advanced or transformed agricultural systems and food systems in Kenya, and so that we can make agriculture more admirable to the young people. I can't forget to overemphasize that technology, modernizing agriculture is the way to go, so that we can have young people get into agriculture. And oh my goodness, before I forget, just one point that came up was about opening the markets. the markets are very important. If young farmers or young people are doing farming and they know that there is a market for their products, definitely that's a win, because we are doing agriculture to sell the products. And having open markets is where we do away with cartels, we do away with, to some extent, middlemen, we do away with also, you know, closing up the market where the market is just for specific people, or putting in, you know, policies and tariffs that are not favorable to everybody. So there's a need to open the markets and make sure that we have you know, reliable market to the produce that is being produced. And one way of opening our own market is, I think, curbing the imports. There are so many imports, you know, coming in, and of course it's a competition to our own farmers. For instance, in Kenya, I'm actually, all this time I'm talking about the Kenyan context. So we have, you know, lots of imports coming which are cheaper. And then our own products, because we have used a lot of money to do the production, of course, the cost might be a little bit high. So when we are competing with cheaper imports, that becomes impossible to access the markets, or even impossible to thrive in the market. So there's a need to regulate that. I believe we do not have to import all these many things that we import. Garlic, onions, you know, tomatoes. And you're like, we can actually do this on ourselves. And one way to do that is to just have the most favorable policy support from the government to do some of these things. And I hope we can have a government that really looks into the main things that need to happen for us to see agriculture thriving and agriculture becoming a source of employment for so many young people that are unemployed. So let's open the markets. Let's make sure there are markets for all these different produce that we produce or we want to produce in agriculture sector. All right, so those are my few nuggets for this particular episode. As I have told you before, I'm just trying to bridge the gap where we have some episodes that have been lost. And so we want to make sure that we keep you in tune and also updated on what we are doing in the Agri-Foods podcast. So as much as I am making this content, this is some content that is not just about anything to do with me. It's something that has to do with the society. So I welcome you to become part of this society. Let's discuss solutions and things that we know we should do to see change in agriculture and to see improvement of livelihoods in our communities. And also to see, you know, I know putting agriculture is the only, you know, sector that should provide employment. It's a huge, you know, abandon, you know, like a huge task on agriculture. But agriculture in Kenya is very, very vital to the economy, and therefore, of course, it can be and should be a major source of employment for the many young people that are up and down looking for jobs which are not available. So become part of the society. Tell a friend, put a comment in the section, in our comment section. If you want to as well come and discuss some of these topics, we are open. You can reach out to us through our email address or even through my personal email address, and we will have you on the bench to discuss some of these issues that need to be known and that need to be discussed so that we can see change in agriculture and so that we can see transformation in agriculture. So please as well subscribe to our channel, and we hope to see you in the next episode. I am your host, Harriet Mawea, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.